Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven, folks. Now, last time you saw me in this district, I said, famous last words, that I would be wearing a bit less in this episode because the sun had come out. Well, just how quickly the British weather can change, because now it's decided to be overcast again and it is windy. Very, very, very windy. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting episode. Hopefully you can hear all the audio in this one. Now, this one consists of two villages. One of them is called Kelby and the other one is called Culverthorpe. And together they form the parish of Culverthorpe and Kelby. The North Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Culverthorpe and Kelby, Culver's settlement and ridge village. We continue our journey around North Kesteven this week with a look at Culverthorpe and Kelby, an interesting and sparsely populated little slice of land that borders South Kesteven. As the name suggests, we have two settlements to cover in this one. First of all, there's Kelby, which is the larger. That has the main church in this area as well as most of the habitation. It even has a picturesque village pond too at its eastern end. Kelby means ridge village, although where the actual ridge is open to debate, as the place is mostly flat. Then there's Culverthorpe, which originated as an outlying settlement secondary to Kelby. A tiny place, this drive-in was designed to cover it almost in its entirety. However, it's here where our main walk will take place today, because Culverthorpe has one of the grandest mansions anywhere in the country, and it's publicly accessible. Culverthorpe Hall allows people to walk around its parkland, so long as they keep to the designated rights of way. That's what we're going to do, and it'll allow us to talk at length about the house and the estate. That's something we rarely get to do. Do take note, by the way, this one was filmed in the middle of Storm Kathleen, so there were some ferocious high winds blasting across the area. It wasn't fun. Let's go. We start this episode first in Kelby, which is the main village in the parish, even though Culverthorpe is listed first. It has one main street, Osby Road. Osby is the village directly to the south, but it's across the border into South Kesteven. It forms part of the parish of Haydor. Kelby's largest landmark is this church dedicated to St Andrew. Its striking tower was rebuilt in 1850 after a previous one collapsed. Among its internal features there are pews which were originally within a chapel at Culverthorpe Hall. Its basement, yes it has one, is Norman and the font is Early English. St Andrews is predominantly 12th century. Interestingly, inside, there's some evidence of 11th century herringbone masonry above the chancel arch, suggesting the presence of an earlier building. The lower stage of the tower appears to be Norman in date. Let's walk through the rest of Kelby now, and it's not a long trek. Kelby is 5 miles away from Sleaford and 11 away from Grantham. It was formerly a chapelry in the parish of Haydor before becoming a separate parish in 1866. In 1935, that was abolished and merged with Culverthorpe to form what we have today. As villages go, it hasn't got a lot. Mind you, I did find this postbox in the wall of the manor house, which dates back to the time of George V. Over the road there's an old K6 phone box, and it now houses a defib machine. Beyond these, which are both in the village centre, the road begins to head for a cul-de-sac that features a pretty pond. Check out the ancient house on the left, by the way. That's called Kate's Cottage, but it was formerly known as Pond Cottage. It's 17th century, second only to the church in terms of age, and one of only 7 listed buildings in the entire parish. Okay, so we'll leave a card on the parish notice board here in Kelby because I don't think I'm going to find one in Culverthorpe, and you'll see why in a few moments' time. There you go, that is Culverthorpe and Kelby officially done. So let's head back to the car and drive then to Culverthorpe, which is where today's main walk is going to be. Culverthorpe is actually a smaller village than Kelby, but it does have a massive feature that we simply have to cover. So here we are in Culverthorpe, and we start at a car park next to this huge lake. We are in Culverthorpe Park, which is the parkland associated with the gorgeous Culverthorpe Hall. The hall, the park and this very lake were all created for the Newton family in 1679. The Newtons have a complicated history, as does the estate. The family owned the estate until 1803 via both their own lineage and their Archer Hublon branch. In the 20th century, though, it would transfer to the Dymoke family, the very same who we last spoke about in East Lindsey when we explored Haltham. Before the Newtons, Culverthorpe was already an estate village. In the mid-17th century, it was held by the Listers. The first Newton to be associated with Culverthorpe was Sir John Newton, who was the MP for Grantham for 25 years. It was he who remodelled an already extant hall here. In the 1730s, his grandson Michael, also an MP, made further changes to it. We're approaching the hall now. The path around the park passes some farm buildings first, but this is all legal, providing you stick to the public rights of way. As this sign says, Culverthorpe remains a private estate. Michael Newton died in 1743, at which point the estate passed to the Archer Hublon family thanks to his sister Susanna, who then adopted the Newton name. The last Newton, another Michael, died in 1803, ending the family's association with the estate. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and Rodolphe Ladevese Adlacron bought the hall and employed Reginald Blomfield to undertake alterations. Shall we see the hall then? We've been ambling our way towards it for a while now. It really is the pièce de résistance of the estate, but then again, you probably expected that, right? Culverthorpe Hall is Grade 1 listed. The stables and garages, which were originally service wings, have their own separate Grade 2 listings. The hall is a 2-storey building with a raised attic. Its style is Palladian and it's faced in limestone ashlar with slate roofs. The central block has 5 bays. Nicolaus Pevsner in Buildings of England notes possible attributions to either Robert or Roger Morris, or even both. This would make sense. Roger Morris worked on the Newtons' London house, whilst Robert Morris dedicated his lectures on architecture to the Newton family. Wouldn't it be great if every estate that we ever visited with a hall like that was able to let the public walk around their grounds? Because you know what, once you get close up to a place such as Culverthorpe Hall, you do appreciate the architecture a lot more, don't you? You know, it just in pictures, it's a bit of a different story. And check out this lawn, by the way. Isn't that perfectly manicured? I think we'd all like a lawn like that, wouldn't we? How the other half live. After you pass the hall, look to your left and you'll see a wooded copse known as the Wilderness. It's private land, but within those trees is something not even the locals may know about: Culverthorpe Temple. OS maps from 1740 show the temple as something else, St Bartholomew's Chapel. It's actually accurate to call it both, and here's the story behind it. The building was erected as part of the landscape park for Culverthorpe Hall for the Newton family. It was a chapel dedicated to St Bartholomew. It was designed in 1691, possibly by William Stanton, but it wasn't built until at least 1735. Made of limestone ashlar, it remained in use until 1803, following the death of Michael Newton. It was then partially demolished sometime in the 1800s, and the building materials were salvaged for reuse. Its pews were the ones relocated to the church in Kelby. Its facade was added to in the 19th century, most probably to create a folly. That's when it was first described as Culverthorpe Temple. There was an ambitious millennium project to restore the remains of the tetrastyle Ionic portico, pulvinated frieze, and dentelated pediment of the former chapel, and to rebuild it on its original site. However, this never came to fruition. The images in this section all come from the website Derelict Places, and I'm not totally sure if the guy who took them was there 100% legally. It's worth noting that even though it's private land, there is a wide grass path that leads to the chapel. I've no idea though if that's a public right-of-way. It seems likely, given the information at hand, that the path was designed specifically for the Newtons, allowing them to access their private place of worship. If you are able to access the wilderness and the chapel or temple legally, it's over there behind that house. I opted not to try just in case I upset anyone in doing so, and instead stuck to the path around the parkland. And what parkland, eh? Even though you are more likely to see sheep than humans, the view is awesome in all directions. These attractive routes are known as the Culverthorpe Walks. They run all the way around the parkland, but for the easternmost and southernmost stretches they follow grass tracks, punctuated by a few wooden stiles. At this point, the wind noise was so bad that I've had to just voice over what I was trying to say. I was advising you that walking around the park should be done in boots. Often, after heavy rainfall, these paths become a sludge fest, as evidenced by this corner, where it turns back towards the car park. Now, on the southernmost path, we find ourselves reunited with Culverthorpe Lake. There are in fact two lakes here, with a drive that crosses a dam between them. We've already walked that drive, it's the one that leads to the farm. The lakes are fed from a stream called the North Beck, which flows into the park at its southwestern corner and then exits beyond the dam at the southeastern corner. Interestingly, in 1740, the land between the lakes and the hall was planted with formal trees, lining a wide avenue to the water. On maps dated 1819, these were shown as water furrows. Mark off Culverthorpe and Kelby, everyone. We are motoring through this part of Kesteven at a rate of knots. Next week we will continue our journey in these parts with a village that stretches for some distance along the banks of the River Slee. I reckon it's one of the prettiest around here too. Stay tuned to see where it is. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.